Hello and welcome to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Willis and I'm joined once again by Jordan Carlisle and James Black for this week's Rangers News Roundup. And there's been plenty going on this week. I think we should probably just dive in straight away with the kind of COVID breaches. But before we do that, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed already, please click subscribe, please click like, please leave a comment below as well if you want to get involved. The more likes and subscriptions we get, the better the content will be. And yeah, we're nearing in on that 5k total, so please click like and please click subscribe if you haven't already. But yes, we may as well start with them COVID breaches. I know you've had kind of a lot to say about it, James, but what's your thoughts on it? In fact, you know what, I'll give a wee bit of background first. We don't actually have anything confirmed yet from the club other than that they are conducting an investigation. Reports are suggesting that 4 Rangers players were at a house party where 10 people were issued with fixed penalty notices for COVID-19 breaches. 2 of them have been named in Nathan Patterson and Calvin Bassey, but as of yet, nothing's came out of the club. So obviously got a wee bit of kind of deja vu from the incident with Jordan Jones and George Edmondson. Maybe that makes it a wee bit worse, but the biggest difference is that Rangers aren't really kind of leading the narrative as they did with this one, and things seem a little bit all over the place with social media and stuff. So, yeah, James, what's your 2 cents on it?
It's a complete shambles. The players involved, and the last I heard, it's now 5 players, 3 academy boys, and the 2 first team guys. And it's a slap in the face. After seeing what happened with George Edmondson and Jordan Jones last time around, for any players to be going out and even just skirting the rules, knowing what's at stake just now, knowing where everything is just now, knowing the warnings they've had for the club, and knowing the repercussions that it brought for the other 2 half-wits. Any players going out and flaunting the rules and the guidelines just now are just, they're idiots, man. Complete idiots. And I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately it would prove to be the beginning of the end for each of the Rangers' careers.
What do you think, John?
I just actually couldn't believe it when it came out. It's just the first one was a surprise, wasn't it? Because of how well, you see, up until then the club were dealing with it, and so it seemed were all the players. And the Jordan Jones and the Edmondson thing, though, you think that's it. You know, it was so public. The backlash was so big from the fans at the time, because at that point, maybe, you know, Rangers had started the season well. At this point, you know, the title's within touching distance. And there was a thought then it would derail the entire campaign. The backlash was massive. Surely the players, so you know, some players will obviously be like, "Oh, don't read anything," and other ones read it all. Surely there's an awareness of the backlash to that. The fact that these guys, the first guys were banned for 7 games, fined, and then are now in England. There's no coincidence that they're now in England after breaching it. So to go out and, I don't know, like they're young lads. If it's the ones talked about, and obviously 3 academy players are talking about young lads here, and it's the case for everyone around the world. There's a lot of young lads who are going to want to go and have a beer and stuff with their mates, and they can't do it. There's a lot who will have done it and got away with it, but how you can think that that you will do it, both if, you know, the 2 first team players in question, both on long-term deals at the club. One recently signed one, one the poster boy of the academy and progression from the club, and to risk all that right enough, say, for a few beers on a Saturday, and then the backlash that's inevitably going to come from it, and people are right to, obviously you never condone people going over the top, but people are right to be angry about the situation, because the fact of the matter here is that you know, players have got certain exceptions from the rules, and the fact they've been able to go about stuff normally. They haven't been cooped up. They've been going to training every day and playing matches, whereas like everyone else has been inside for months, and 4 months for about the 3rd time. And you know, there's no end really immediate in sight for that, and for people to go and do it, and just to think that, I don't know, there's potential up and down the country. Some players have done this throughout the season and not been caught, a couple of times during the season and not been caught.
But guaranteed. That's not potential.
That is true, because there's obviously, if it's a 10-person gathering, I'm sure so many of those have happened and not been broken up, but you're literally taking your entire career into your own hands when you do it. So we don't know what the actual punishment is going to be, but by effect of taking a step outside your front door, going and buying some stuff and going to someone's flat, accepting the invitation to go to someone's flat, you're literally risking your entire career. So at this point, having seen the example and the precedent set with the other ones, it's incredible that it happened.
I see. I mean, I am not willing to get carried away until you find out the true facts of what it is. It looks like that's the case. They went to a party or whatever, but I think some of the stuff, they just maybe need to get a wee bit of perspective. Nathan Patterson signed a new contract. It's till 2024, and there's people talking about wanting to chuck him out of the club. But you know, I think the Edmondson and Jones one, right? They're a little bit older. They're in the mid-20s and stuff, and that should basically serve as an example. It's quite outstanding that they've went out and breached it despite that happening. So the fact that there's a case there, I think, makes it worse against them. I mean, there's no defending it, really. There's absolutely no defending it. I think just maybe a wee bit of perspective and a wee bit of expectation, because when things are going so well at the club, everything's going so well on the pitch. We're about to win the title. Europe's on the horizon, and yet there are people who have really just lost the rag over this. And I understand that it's like a pain and it's like an inconvenience, but I think that there's more important things going on. And me personally, I'll trust what the authorities do and what the club choose to do. And it's just me personally, it's just my opinion, but I'll trust what they choose to do and how they choose to deal with it, rather than the kind of witch hunting that you see on social media and stuff. And I think that the way that they dealt with the Jones and Edmondson thing, I don't think that they so much had a future at the club anyway. I think that they risked all that. They were squad players. They should be trying to fight into the team. I think it might be a bit different because these are youth players. But
does that argument not stand up to them, that these are youth players? They should be really trying to push themselves and make their name into the team. They should be doing everything to prove to Steven Gerrard and his coaching staff that we are the future of this club. We are the ones who you should be trusting for the next lot to come through. In terms of the perspective stuff, I find that a really weak excuse for people, because let me give you this bit of perspective. If they'd showed up to training and this hadn't came out, and then you've got 7 players having to self-isolate, and we're out of Europe, we start losing games. The only
were they with their girlfriends? Or
it was because they got caught.
I mean, I get that, but I guarantee you, not just Rangers players, but like I guarantee all of us, you know, like have breached the guidelines in some way. When
to the extent that I've been fined by the police, I've not. No, that's
not been caught. This is the point. So the point that you get caught and it makes different. But I'm willing to hasten. I think the COVID thing's difficult, right? And I think that it's a strange landscape to be living in. It's difficult for everybody. I'm no way excusing what the guy's done. I understand why it's infuriating, but I don't think they should lose their Rangers careers over it. I think wait and see what happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's worth flying off the handle before you actually find out at source from the club.
Players have lost the biggest for much less.
The biggest difference between the Jones and Edmondson thing is the fact that time Rangers were straight out, led the narrative, explained everything. This time we don't really know what's happened, you know, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. But the biggest thing, they've let down Steven Gerrard and the team. They've let themselves down. You know, these are Nate Patterson and Bassey in particular are 2 guys that are going to get more minutes as the season kind of bottlenecks. Do you know what I mean? And they're not going to be able to play. I mean, that's going to impact the development. You know, there might well be a vein of thinking within Rangers that their careers are over. I mean, I find that unrealistic. I just think that they're too young and they've been kind of hyped up as potential replacements for Tavernier and Barisic. I just don't think that's realistic. I think they suffer more than anybody else. But in terms of COVID breaches and coming into training and that, I think not just Rangers players, but like players at any club, anybody in any industry, in any business has breached the very strict COVID guidelines to do one thing or another, be it visit a parent or to visit friends or do something. And in a society where everybody's guilty, the only true crime is getting caught. And that's what happened.
That's an absolute cop-out, mate. I'm sorry, but
my situation. My situation here is that, like, I just think the players are so privileged in the position they're in. I haven't been home in 6 months or something, longer than that. I haven't seen my family in 6 months. So, I mean,
you have to go to Northern Ireland. It's,
Well,
I mean,
I know
I'm not excusing what they've done. I'm just trying to get a sense of perspective. I don't want them hounded out the club. And listen, it peeved me off and it pissed me off. And the biggest lesson that they should learn is that when you're playing for Rangers, or if you want to make it in elite level football, playing for a club like Rangers or any club, you're representing something that's much bigger than yourself. You know what I mean? And what the same people in my mind that are sitting chanting for them to be like released, I think that if they went on to have amazing careers, they'd be sitting there going, we should never have released them. It's I think just I don't think it's black and white. I think just take a wee bit of time and let the club do what they're doing. I think the way that they handled the Jones and Edmondson thing was classy, and I'm expecting the same from this, but we'll see what comes of it. It's my 2 cents on it. I just don't want to jump on the bandwagon.
I'm just surprised that actually, because the club went that way the last time, it does seem a little bit strange that I think they went that way. They were very clear and they were praised for it. The fact that it hasn't happened, and I do get elements of what you're saying. I do understand the fact that these young players, but I don't know whether that I actually don't really know. There's some ways that makes it more excusable, and there's other ways that it doesn't. As James says, they should be pushing the whole thing is get notice in training and don't do anything other than that would raise attention, or bring flags around your name. I do get the point though, that we were just talking here last week about going into the Kilmarnock game. Would you be nervous if there wasn't a win there? So that's obviously on the back of a win, but going forward, if you miss, like it is realistic. It's the prospect of, if one of them picks up a case and goes in to training, and then is in the changing room. So I don't know what they follow in terms of when they're inside in the training ground and stuff like that. But in terms of if they're split off into training drills in certain groups, say that all the defenders are working on something, and then suddenly the authorities come in, they're just like, yeah, you all of you have to self-isolate, and yeah, you have a couple of league games and a 2-tie or a 2-leg Europa League game in the space of a fortnight, and none of those players are playing in that. So it is all hypothetical, but at the same time, all of this stuff will have been stressed to the players to the nth degree, and they've seen it with Celtic. Like, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. I think Rangers fans are so angry as well because they've seen the meltdown that happened at Celtic and how a couple of bad decisions led to an already
test leaves 13 years out or something,
an already imploding season, but it totally derailed it, and that was it, and they were a laughing stock, and the fact that I think a lot of people reveled in that, but then the players would sort of risk Rangers going down the same route and not having as clean a record and stuff like that. I do think it's young lads, and you don't want to pile on them, say that they shouldn't have a.
That's not my problem. Is the pile on,
but does that not come with the territory of the Rangers?
But we don't have a full image of what's going on. It is different. It's like you don't actually know what's happened, and I mean, the club will suspend them. They'll get 7-match bans, the same as everybody else. They're the ones that are affected by it. It's frustrating for supporters. It's annoying, and I absolutely agree fundamentally with absolutely everything you're saying. But it's in the reaction that I think wait and be patient and see what's going on.
I can get why people that have been stuck at home for months and haven't seen family and loved ones are really pissed off.
Does that not just mean that they're kind of using that, taking that out on these guys? The COVID-19 pandemic is difficult for any multitude of reasons. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if you say, I've been at home for all this time, so therefore it justifies that. I just think it's a little bit. I don't know exactly what happened, and no one else does. And until we do, I don't know if it's exactly fair to be making ultimate decisions on these guys' futures and stuff. That's it. But I absolutely agree. They should not be going to parties. They're representing Rangers. It's absolutely unbelievable that they are. I'm just a little bit apprehensive to pile on them.
I question what trust the manager has in them going forward.
Absolutely, man.
If it's me and somebody that you've already had that situation, you've had employees that you've had to punish for whatever reason, and to all intents and purposes, and I don't think I'm speaking at a ton here, George Edmondson and Jordan Jones' Rangers careers are finished. George Edmondson had his squad number stripped from him and everything.
But,
They're done.
You think so, but you can't say. You just don't.
I can't say for absolute certainty, but I'm fairly confident that will, at best, they might get a couple more games, but they won't be long-term Rangers.
I don't think they would have been anyway.
If you listen to anything Gerrard says about Edmondson, the sun shines on Edmondson's arse a lot of the time.
I think that's the galling thing for someone like a Gerrard who you don't get praise from easily, I think, and he's been very sort of cautious with young players in the academy. Some people would say to a fault in terms of actually introducing them into the first team games and stuff like that. But these are guys who, you know, if it's proven that they've done stuff wrong, he has praised massively. Bassey since he signed, Patterson since he's come up through, guys that have invested a lot of time in. And see, aside from anything else, just because of the peculiar nature of the positions that they play in, this leaves Rangers unbelievably short for no matter how long they're banned for. There are no other senior left backs or right backs at the club, other than the ones in the position, other than people out on loan.
If you assume that they're going to get similar bans to Jones and Edmondson's, their season's finished.
And that's a disappointing thing, because they would have probably got game time. And then if you're talking about us going deep into European competition and then not having the backup stuff, it's directly going to impact Rangers. But they haven't announced if they're self-isolating yet. They haven't announced if there's an actual issue here. They haven't actually announced anything. So, I mean, by the time this goes out, that might have changed, right? But, I mean, to me, they would surely say they're now self-isolating. No one said that. I mean, this training's surely going to be back on today. They're going to fly out.
The players are currently suspended pending investigation just now. That's why they're no...
Are they suspended? Did they say that?
There's no way they'll be on that flight if there's any area like...
If there's any kind of conjecture about it, there's absolutely no way they'll be on the flight. They won't be training either. But they haven't made an announcement about it yet. You know, so... This is why I'm kind of like, you know, I absolutely agree. It's ridiculous playing for Rangers, going to parties, putting seasons at jeopardy, putting other players at jeopardy, the potential for kind of COVID-19 stuff and that. But I just think when you find out the facts of the case, then you can start calling for players to be sacked and things like this. I just think until you find that out, I'm just apprehensive to have a pile on. And I think sometimes you can be a wee bit passive aggressive, but I don't know. I mean, just based on what you're saying with regards to people not being able to leave their house for 4 months or whatever, and it's not these guys' fault either. You don't actually know what happened. Let's just wait and see what happened.
We do know that 10 people were issued penalty notices for breaking the law, and the Rangers are now investigating whether players were involved in that. So it's enough there why people have their hackles up. That's understandable.
Yeah, I completely get it. But for me,
have any of you been issued fixed notices for breaching the COVID guidelines?
No, but have you breached the COVID guidelines?
You're telling us we've all done it.
I think most people I know would have done it in some way, but not like blatantly. You know, I haven't been to like a 10-person party or anything like that. I mean, that's
there's the big problem. I mean, if you're saying that people wouldn't do it blatantly, why are players stupid enough to do it so blatantly?
It's ludicrous. But is it like their girlfriends or something?
It doesn't matter if it's girlfriends or not. That's by the by. If they're girlfriends or not.
Girlfriends don't have the 3-year contracts.
I mean, listen, I completely agree. Just wait until we get a wee bit of perspective. But it's good.
I'd love to sit with my mates or missus and have a get together one night, but it's been a long time since we've been able to.
Exactly. And then they're going to get punished for it, and they're going to get punished appropriately by the SFA. They're going to get punished by Rangers. They're going to get punished in whatever way. For me, I think it's a wee bit short-sighted to say let's get rid of them. I just don't know what's happened. Maybe my opinion will change when that information comes to light, but I don't know. But
there's actually 10. Yeah, there's actually 10 people issued notices, but there's 470 there.
Mate, I wouldn't be surprised, man. Well, now that that's out of the way, I mean, that's an interesting one. I think people are kind of split like that, the way that we've kind of split this. I think that's people's takes on it. For me personally, I'm just going to wait until whatever comes out. But on to more kind of important matters, which are those on the pitch and the result against Kilmarnock at the weekend. I think when we previewed it, I was talking about how it came at like a pivotal time, and it was making me a little bit apprehensive, and I predicted the 1-0 win as well.
There we go. Yeah, it was coming up.
It was a moment of quality. I thought it was going to come from Yanis Hadji.
You had to get one eventually.
Exactly, man. But Ryan Jack come up with an absolutely stunning volley to win the match for Rangers. Jordan, how important is the return of Ryan Jack, and talk us through that goal?
What a piece of quality, like, isn't it? It's serious piece of skill, and he has shown in the past he's capable of scoring from distance, and it was sort of a wee period last year where he was really shooting on sight a lot, and it's something that we haven't seen, isn't it? It's something that people have complained about a lot over the last couple of years, that people are unwilling to shoot from distance. So obviously you can't guarantee that unless your team's filled with absolute superstars that a huge percentage of them go in, but that's a difference between the teams on the weekend. And I think it's really important. I think it gives you a bit of a boost though, doesn't it? If almost, if he'd been there all season, it's not maybe something that you'd rave about as much. But see, if you have someone out for a little while, Rangers are still putting results together and stuff like that, then you can bring him back in. It's the same with Arfield, coming on obviously off the bench. He's going to play a big role over the next couple of weeks. He'll be refreshed, motivated, keen to get his place back. And I think that's the case with Jack. I said before that you could probably put him into an unreliable bracket because of the calf injuries that have been recurring. But when he puts games together and stuff, it was that period. He's really shown in international football and stuff recently that he's a real quality player, isn't he? And he's one of those guys again who has time on the ball. A different player to Davis, but both of them have time on the ball, and it gives Rangers a lot to bring him back in there. And again, it's sharing the goals around, isn't it? We've talked about Hadji coming up with ones in 1-0 games. There's Jack does it, but we're talking, Itten maybe didn't take his chance fully in terms of playing 2 games through as a number 9. But with Defoe not fit, Roof and Morelos both banned, Rangers still finding ways to win games against a motivated opposition at the weekend. So it was a big impact.
Yeah, it was an absolutely stunning goal. And the guy that was played alongside him returned to the team as well, James, Stephen Davis. He got man of the match from Rangers TV. What did you make of his performance?
Strolled it again. He's like a fine wine. He's getting better with age, the kind of usual cliches. But he's one of these players that I had fears after the initial layoff. No football for 5-6 months or something. And I genuinely worried that the likes of him, Defoe and Alan McGregor to an extent were going to really feel the effects of that, kind of not playing for half a season. It's a long chunk of time at that age. But he's just strolled it this season. And Gerrard said after the Killie game that he's really putting himself in the running for Player of the Year. And you can't argue with that. He's very much up there. He's maybe not quite my choice yet, but he's definitely one of a couple that sits up there for it.
Do you think he's better now than what he was when he first played at Rangers?
Too hard to compare for me. 2 very different positions he played. I think the Davis that was here first time around would actually suit really well into this side. Kind of playing him wide on the right and having him coming inside. It really suits how this team lines up. But the Davis now, he's a Rolls Royce player for us.
He's a class act, Stephen Davis. Do you think that he can go on beyond this season, John?
Yeah, I think it's a guy who's putting really consistent performances together, and we obviously talked before about this sort of succession plan and the need to have that for him, but I don't think there's an urgency there as such, because touch wood, he's not the same really as a Jack who's had persistent problems that have kept him out. He's had wee niggles and stuff since he's come, and I think that sets him back. Anytime he has any time out of the side, it sets him back a little bit. But I mean, if he can just play regularly, he provides so much like incision with his passing. Obviously, we saw that off the bench at Hamilton, just bang straight away, and he just has a range that no other player in the team has. And that, the experience. I think there's so many young players, and there's a lot of talent and precociousness and stuff in the squad. But he never gets too excited about anything. Like the guy, I think when Northern Ireland qualified for the Euros, when he went to the Euros, the Ukraine game, so absolutely buzzing, elated. Other than that, he very rarely goes above a smile. Obviously, he's got a mask on when he's doing interviews and stuff, but he's always just level-headed, and he just looks unflustered when he goes about stuff during games. And I think it's just exactly what Rangers need. And I think Jared said it a few times. He's been, he came up against them fairly regularly in the Premier League. He's obviously got a couple of hundred games probably there with Aston Villa and Southampton. And he always thought he was a tough opponent, but seeing him in training every day, he understands the actual level that he has as a player. And to only be a couple of years younger than Gerrard himself and still producing performances at the level that he is, going into a European game now as a key player in the side and stuff like that, and still playing international football, which is also mental that he's not getting the breaks that a lot of other players are at his age. So yeah, I think he can definitely. There's no question that he can go into next year if he wants to do it, and then it's probably a case by case. But there's nothing to suggest right now that he's actually close to the end.
I think the big thing that a lot of people made out about that game on Saturday was his anticipation and being able to read the where the ball was going to drop and being in the right place at the right time. I think that comes with experience. So I agree he's a different player than what it was before, and huge for Rangers. Another player returned on Saturday, if only for a little brief moment. It was Scott Arfield. Is that a big boost to Rangers' chances, James?
Massive. I'm an unashamed, huge fan of Scotty Arfield and have been since long before he's a Rangers player, so getting him back's massive. He's got that energy in midfield that I think we lack far too often. Somebody wanting to make those third man runs and go beyond the strikers. So getting him back, getting him fit and getting him playing regularly is going to be really important, because I think he can be the player that Joe Aribo's struggling to be consistently in that midfield.
What about for you, Jordan? How big a boost is Arfield coming back?
Yeah, there have been, I think, probably Aribo has benefited in terms of very regular game time since he's been away. But yeah, there's been some flashes of brilliance, but there's still an inconsistency there. Whereas with Arfield, I think it does seem strange sometimes if you point to a big player's key attribute as energy and work rate, because obviously, you find someone down the park who could come into midfield and give you energy, but it's the way he sort of puts himself about, the positions he takes up. And I think that ability to connect things, sometimes Rangers just lack that. I think when there's poor performances, if you have a Jack and a Davis, who are both very good at mopping things up in front of the back four, even Kamara to an extent, and playing the passes, those ones that Davis sort of takes up a bit of a quarterback. I don't like American football, but that's sort of what he does. He sits back and pings balls at times, and you need people filling those spaces in between. Otherwise, it's too clear a divide to defend against, I think. And he sort of makes things difficult. And his ability to link up with whoever is really in front of him is key. So, yeah, I was looking at the stuff earlier, and he started all but one of the 9 European games so far this year. So he's big in that sense. And he's also just a key man going forward. So when it comes to the Old Firm, for example, he's fully fit. He just plays and brings that sort of tenacity and stuff to the midfield that that Rebo can provide, certainly at the minute. So yeah, big boost.
I think he links the midfield and attack. He's always at a kind of pivot. He plays 1-2 passes and stuff, and he's really kind of technically good playing in tight spaces and that. And I'm excited to see him back. As well as in the return of Freddie Morelos also beckons, hopefully on Thursday, but also next weekend in the Scottish Premiership after 3 games out. We touched on Cedric Itten, who I thought personally worked hard, but I think Morelos is the main man. Are you excited to see El Buffalo back amongst the starting 11, James?
I don't think we will on Thursday.
You don't think so?
I think we'll start Roof.
Oh, I don't know. He's too big. He's too big a player. What do you think of that, John?
I was actually thinking about that earlier on, to be fair, because in the past, what he's done, I think a couple of times, is when he's been out for a ban. He hasn't started him in the game afterwards, then goes for it. So yeah, I get that. Although he is the man in Europe, isn't he? So I think it's maybe slightly different in that regard. I think if Roof, I don't know. Yeah, I think if Roof had impressed in number 9 role, I think he would definitely go for Roof. But I just don't think he's offered enough. He will play, you would imagine, in terms of being available. So that leaves one less spot up the top. But I can actually see both things happening. I think he probably will start him. But it also depends on the condition he's in. Sometimes in the past, he's almost, I think it's kind of weird when we're talking about disciplinary stuff, he's almost like rewarded Morelos when he's got banned and been like, I can have a few sort of easy days training wise, and
he told him to come back late from Colombia as well once. And he came back late for the Hearts game. Is that the same time?
Although no, I think they might even be separate times. But yeah, there's incidences of when he hasn't been available, and they've just been like, oh, you know, you do your own thing, Alfredo, and that has then been the detriment to the team, I think, afterwards. So it depends how much they've been pushing him in the last couple of weeks as well, whether he's actually ready to play.
I think it'll have changed. You'll see with the COVID stuff, it'll be a bit different, and that he won't have been allowed to like fly. Because I know with the players, he's went back to Colombia to go and see family and kind of go and get his head together. He's not going to have been allowed to do that. They're not going to have gone. You've got 3 games banned, just away to Colombia for a week or 2 and get your shit together. And for anybody that follows his missus on Instagram, she's been having her regular balloon parties. So. That's the stuff a legend, by the way.
Yeah.
A story on his photo of his wee daughter that was going mad on Twitter, man. She's pure scowling and that. She's spitting him. It's like, it's funny. He's a funny guy, Morelos. Just a funny character. You know what I mean? I'll be glad to see him back playing. Like, you know what I mean? That's the most disappointing thing about all that disciplinary nonsense. It's just the fact that you speak about the politics of it, or the nonsense of it, or the problem with the entire system. It's the fact that we don't get to see Morelos play, we don't get to see Roof playing, and it bans players from actually playing the game of football. You know what I mean? It just makes it less of a spectacle. But as for him starting on Thursday night, it's a good point. It's a good kind of dimension to it. Maybe he won't. Plus Roof scored against Standard and that, and he's played in Belgium before. So, you know, he's maybe got a wee idea of the league.
His last game for Anderlecht was against Antwerp.
So yeah, he's aware of it. You know what I mean? So that might be a good shout.
I think to see if Roof wasn't banned for the weekend, it might have been a bit different. But I think with Roof being out this weekend, it would make more sense to play him tonight, keep Morelos that wee bit fresher, bring him off the bench later on, give him 20 minutes to kind of get some speed into him, get some energy into his legs, and then you bring him back in at the weekend.
Yeah. We're going to touch on Antwerp more in a kind of preview video, but just as we go, just to round this off, and obviously with the Europa League on the horizon, what do you think the target is in the Europa League this season?
I think we've already surpassed it, to be honest. I know I probably said earlier in the season that getting to where we went to was, where we got to last season was what you're always aiming for. But I think in terms of actual realistic targets, just getting through the group stage was the big one. I think if you can do that, you get through the qualifiers, get through the groups, everything after that's a bit of a bonus.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I think that when you go into the season, they're really looking to qualify in the first instance. That's key, huge money-wise. And then obviously there's a lot of money-making opportunities in the group in terms of rewards per result. But I think that we really in their chances out of this game. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I think the way that the club is trying to move forward with all the people involved in the background and all the plans and long-term stuff and all that, I don't think they want to take a step back. So I think last 16 at least. And then see from there. It does depend on the draw, and that's one thing that you can't really factor in the plans. You know, you could actually draw someone who's not great, get to the last 8 again, get a kind one, somehow go even further than that, and then the next year you get someone mental and around the 32. So sometimes it doesn't plan out that way, but I think last 16 minimum, and then go from there.
I think the kind of competitive side of Steven Gerrard will make him want to go one step further than what he did last year. I think maybe the quarterfinals will be where we're aiming, but like you say, it's all about the draw. But yeah, that was a very entertaining video. I think the COVID-19 stuff will rumble on for a few days yet. Hopefully we get a wee bit of clarity with it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please click like, please leave a comment, let us know what you think of what we think about the COVID thing, and Patterson and Bassey and all the breaches, or what you think about Antwerp, or what you think about Ryan Jack, Stephen Davis, and the result against Kilmarnock. Please click subscribe if you haven't already, and we shall see you later in the week with more videos. Mon the Rangers.